What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid-techno, and we're returning to the all-time legendary label Stay It Forever, notable for helping to develop the London acid-techno sound, along with a couple other labels like Smitten and Rootmaster. But yes, they began in the early to mid-90s. I think 93 was the first release, certainly by 94. Their first several releases are somewhere in a territory that I would categorize as acid techno, acid trance hybrids, but certainly by the time you get to about 95, they, meaning the staple of artists as well as the original three liberators, Chris, Aaron, and Julian, sort of keyed in on a particular sound that is now just kind of known as the London sound. It began in Hackney. I think they've since moved to a different part of London, but the point is we're talking about one of the all-time major players in acid techno, especially the UK/London acid sound. And we're going to listen to a track from Dave Lalouche. DDR is his most common sobriquet, but he goes under a number of different names over the years. Trip Hazard, which is what we're going to hear here, being a notable one. I think his first releases were actually on, it was either Chalky's Tunes or Chalky's label VCF, Voltage Controlled Frequencies. But yes, he's an all-time legend. He continues to produce into the modern day. He's put out some records on a number of different labels over the decades. I'm thinking of a really good release he had on the Skankadelic label, which was Mr. Burns' label from like the mid-2000s. But yes, Trip Hazard is one of his aliases, and it's perhaps a wicked, like dissonant, sort of driving sub-flavor of his work. Some of his work in more recent times especially has this sort of acid funky feel to it. I saw him do a live performance on his like controller when he was out here in California, did a really cool set. Ultimately, he's a funny guy too. Talked to him before the show. Shout out to Lethal One, aka Jose, who sort of did the introduction. But yeah, ultimately he makes a lot of great music going back to the mid-90s. We're going to hear his tune, Gotta Get Out of It, all one word, and as you can see, I'm such a fan of this tune, I eventually picked up a backup copy, and then years later on Discogs I saw a very good condition copy going for a pretty economical price. I said, just in case something happens to my first copy or my second copy, I'm going to get a third copy. So yes, it's an all-time classic. As I said, it's called Gotta Get Out of It, one word, and it is the essence of what I mean when I say that a lot of UK or London acid techno has a bit of this punk rock vibe. This track in particular just exudes a mixture of acid techno sonics and punk rock attitude. So let's give it a listen. This is Trip Hazard and his all-time classic, Gotta Get Out of It, from Stay It Forever, 1997. Already multiple percussion rhythms. Distorted synth haze. It's the stuff that beautifully wicked acid nightmares are made of, and it absolutely has a punk attitude to it. So yes, it's got a lot of dissonance. It has that hazy synth layer that just distorts the whole atmosphere of the tune. It has those like high, almost like piercing style synth lines which give you this frenetic, there's a bit of danger afoot type of feel. And then it has those cycling, churning, rolling acid lines, both very deep and almost like an acid motor just turning over and over, but then they keep ratcheting up higher, and little flares and accents flying out. So it's just an all-time rocking acid techno tune. I am curious, a lot of times on these Stay Up Forever records it indicates like where, like at what studio this was made. Written and produced by DDR at Kinetic Studio. So that's what I was going to say. There's a guy, James Kinetic, he ran a record shop and I think production studio for a long time. I'm not sure like his current status. I think there's like a while where he sort of, ducked out of the scene for a little while. Maybe he's still involved. He worked a lot with Ant, aka Anthony Wilson, who now produces under the name Acerbic. But yes, I was talking to Pete about this a while back, and Pete was saying like the Kinetic Studio was famous for having this like arpeggiator, I think it's called, which makes like arpeggios, and you could put like a synth line into it and it would make like arpeggios of the synth. And something about some of the sonic layers in that track made me think of that anecdote, and I wondered like maybe this is one of the tracks that was made at Kinetic Studios, and it very much was. So again, I don't know the full background or details about, the production equipment that was specifically available at Kinetic Studios, but the fact that it was actually made there, and my brain was sort of thinking of what I remember Pete telling me about what you could do with the particular machines, including specifically this arpeggiator, it came to mind during the track, so I'm not surprised to see that. So yeah, bottom line, big shout out to Dave, aka DDR, in this case, Trip Hazard, one of his major aliases. This is an all-time classic. I think if you were to ask me, like, think of a track that just completely exudes and expresses the attitude, the having it sort of style, and just the acid wildness of the original, classic Stay Up Forever period, which again, they still produce records, and many, many acid techno records from both old school producers right up to like a newer generation. So shout out to Chris and Aaron in particular, who still sort of run the label. But if you were to ask me, like, what track would you put forward to articulate the classic 90s Stay Up Forever sound, I think this would be a leading candidate. I think this is one that I would recall and suggest right away. So again, shout out to DDR, shout out to Stay Up Forever. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.